Whereas the 1994 World Cup, I remember more of the football. But still, the sort of strongest memory for me of that is the final, because we were in my dad's village in Italy, which is a really small village he's from originally in Emilia-Romagna, up in the hills. And basically, like, someone had got like a big screen, the courtyard of someone, I guess, old-fashioned landed gentry in the area had got like opened their courtyard up, put a big screen in the middle of it, and watching the final there. And there was a band who'd been playing before the game. And then when the penalties were happening, the drummer was doing a drum roll before each penalty. And I wanted to kill him because I was like, I do not need this drum roll. This drum roll is making me swear. Shoot out. And then Italy lost and I cried. Like, it was the first time I cried about football, for sure. For sure, the first time I cried about football was Italy losing their shootout. And I know, like, with hindsight, it's really funny because I've seen all these sorts of serious journalistic accounts of, first of all, the 1990 World Cup and then the 1994 final. And the consensus in writing seems to be that the 1990 World Cup was terrible, the football was terrible, and the 1994 final was terrible. And I'm not going to go back and watch the 1994 final. I know it was low on chances, but I don't remember it for the football. I remember it for the experience. I remember the feeling of being in that courtyard and how intense everything felt and how powerful those emotions were. And I do remember Massaro missing when through on goal. And I remember, of course, Baggio missing his penalty. And we were in Italy, and the next day it was all about him getting excommunicated from the Catholic Church because he said he was a Buddhist. It was ridiculous. But
see, Saki is so bad for football.
It's so strange because I was heartbroken at the time. You know, I was a kid, and you can't like deal with the complicated emotions of it. And yet now, you know, half a lifetime onwards, when I look back at that, what I think of is like that moment with my family. You know, my dad's not with us anymore, hasn't been since I was a teenager. So like that was one of the sort of, I suppose, last big things we got to do with him as a family. And that moment feels like a beautiful one, even though it was a sad one. And so all these things, like our own personal nostalgia, like colours how we think about all sorts of things. But I think for me, football is very wrapped up. World Cups are very wrapped up in those sort of moments of where I was with my family. Because then again, like if I jump to 2006 World Cup final, which of course a happier memory, Italy win, I could tell you what happens in the game much more vividly because of course I was older, like I remember it better. But what I hold on to from that game isn't specific moments of the game. It's the moment when the last penalty goes in. And I was watching it in London with my brother, actually, because I would have loved to be in Italy, but I was doing my journalism course at the time. I was training to become a professional journalist. I just started taking day shifts at The Guardian, but I was doing some qualifications at the same time. So I was in London. I watched it in a pub with my brother, and we were in Soho, which has got quite a good Italian community anyway. And when the last penalty went in, like, I just remember us both like running towards the door, and then we're out in the street and we're hugging, and there's like cars going by and there's flags, and there were all these Italians just appeared out of nowhere. And that's what I remember. Like, I can talk to you about the game, but what I remember is that feeling and how brilliant it was. And like, really it's sharing it with my brother. Like, so for me, the World Cup is like really tied together with feelings of family, I think, actually, when I think about it.